Hey everyone, it's me. So, some people have been asking in more or less complimentary ways, Sophie, what happened to your face? Lots of you will already know because you saw the fundraiser or even donated to it, and lots of you know other ways. I have had facial feminization surgery. Facial feminization surgery can mean a lot of different things for different people having it. I should clarify that. Medically, it can mean doing lots of different things to the face, so I want to explain what I had done. I also want to talk about my experience getting the surgery, having to travel for it, and some of the politics and my feelings about surgery in general. So this is going to be a bit of an unusual video for me because I really just want to chat to you about some stuff that happened to me and how I feel about it, and I don't necessarily have a point that I'm driving at, so I'll say that from the beginning. This video has no point. Like, subscribe, patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. I want to get through some discourse around surgery before we really start because I think at the beginning is the most useful place to have this conversation in the video. There was a prominent discourse in the trans community, which is still around in some forms now, about transmedicalism, the position that trans people should have every available treatment in order to be accepted by cis society, to look more cis, to sound more cis, to act more cis, to be more like cis people. I say this in the past tense because it kind of got overshadowed by the openness of the right-wing project to try and wipe trans people out, and I'm really not trying to resurrect this discourse now. But within that discourse, I think there was a precursor to the situation we find ourselves in now. To advocate that trans people should try to be as much like cis people as possible in order to be treated like human beings, that's an inherently reactionary position. Trans people don't need to meet cis people's narrow standards in order to be deserving of love and acceptance. The truth is that trans bodies are beautiful, diverse, and fascinating. Now, I'm bringing all this up because I think it's worth exploring two radical positions within that discourse. One, that accessing any kind of transition-related healthcare is radical because cis people are trying to stop us transitioning, and two, that being yourself without changing your body to meet cis approval is radical because cis people want us to look a certain way, often oversimplified to more surgeries more radical and less surgeries more radical. The problem with the bipolar tension of this discourse is that it eliminates your own personal desire to express the gender that you are. And the radical synthesis of these two positions is that all transition is in opposition to cis hegemony, no matter what it looks like or what it involves. I'm saying all that to preface that I got FFS because it makes me look in the mirror and see myself reflected there. And I believe that anyone who wants any gender-affirming surgery should be able to access it, and since I live in the UK and FFS is not provided for free on the National Healthcare Service, I want to help trans people who want it access it. I got my surgery funded through a GoFundMe campaign, and I know that I can help people I know by sharing their campaigns on my platform where I got it funded so quickly, especially as I recognize that if I took what I earn now and tried to just save up for it on my own, I'd probably never make it. I also want to tell people about my experiences because the surgeon that I saw is a lot cheaper than other private surgeons, although traveling to Armenia for surgery is not an uncomplicated thing to propose doing. Yes, that's right, I went to Yerevan, Armenia for my FFS. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but first I want to tell you what my surgeon actually did. This is the bit where I get to talk about my surgery. This is very special for me, oh my god. So I can actually explain this very well because Anna gave me a 3D printout of the parts of my skull that she was changing with a little detachable sinus. Because that's the bit that she took off. It's like, I can do the surgery myself on the little doll of me that she made. In type 1 frontoplasty, what surgeons typically do is just kind of file down the brow, but the thing about the brow is it has the sinus right there, which is a pocket of air that you have to breathe through, and so there's only so much you can really sand before you open up the sinus. In puzzle piece, on the other hand, which is what I had done, the front of the sinus is actually removed and then reshaped to lie flat and laid flat onto the forehead. She also filed down, I don't know if there's a better term than that, I don't want to say power sanded. She also filed down these bits at the corners of my eyes and corrected my deviated septum and gave me a little nose job. People didn't seem to know about how crooked my nose was when I would mention it, even people who'd known me for a long time or seen a lot of my videos, and I kind of think that's because I was looking at people sideways. Like, if you look at this skull, like, the nose is quite off to the side, but I would kind of turn my head so that my nose was facing the person that I was talking to, or the camera in this case. And so when I was going away for surgery, I was telling people, don't think of it like goodbye to this nose. Think of it like hello to this ear. After I'd woken up from surgery, Anna explained what she'd done to my nose. She said she didn't actually move the septum over, and for a second I thought, well, what did I just pay you $7,000 for then, Anna? Then she explained that she'd actually cut around the nose and into the nostril bits, and then moved the whole nose over instead of moving the septum itself. I actually don't know about the parts of surgery where you make noses, like, smaller and cuter, but, you know, she did those bits too. As you can see, it can take about a year for a nose to completely settle down after a nose job, and a strange thing I was told about the swelling is that the swelling kind of goes down the top of the nose, and then the bottom of the nose at the back, and the last bit to go down is this bit right at the front, so it's kind of subtle, but if you look for it in my most recent videos, you can see that my nose was much more swollen up here when I had just had surgery, and now it's still kind of a little bulb. But it'll be going down over time. For reference for all of this, I'm about 6 months out from having had surgery now. Shout out to Dr. Anna Sluzky. She is not a genius. She actually told me not to use the word genius. I told her, Anna, you're a genius, and she said, no. And I said, what? What do you mean no? And she said, my mother said, geniuses are not happy people. So no. So shout out to Dr. Anna Sluzky. She's very good at her job, and I think she made me very pretty. Next I'm going to be talking about my experience of waking up from surgery, because it was very novel to me and kind of a unique experience, but I know some people will be squeamish to some stuff I'm going to say. If you are anticipating that, please skip ahead to this time code now. Okay, I think they're all gone, so let me tell you about surgery. I've actually never been under general anesthetic before, and it was really interesting to observe what people say, that it's not like being asleep, you don't dream, it's like you go out of the universe, and then you instantly pop back into the universe, and 12 hours are missing from your life. And it's like someone fucked you up, because you did just pay them a lot of money to very carefully fuck you up. So, for me, it was like, I went into the operating room, I was thinking, wow, I don't want to be awake in here, this is a bad place to be awake. Oh, don't worry, I'm getting woozy. And I saw all of the people moving around me, the people in the surgical scrubs, and for a second I kind of thought they were, like, carrying big pieces of, like, something, as if they were, like, building a theatre set. And then they all started to slide off of the theatre set, and then the backdrop sort of slid off as well, and then I woke up the next day. When I woke up the next day, I had a potato for a face, one of my eyes was swollen shut, I could tell that all of my airway was completely clogged up, and I figured it was either just blood, or maybe there were some stitches inside my mouth or something. It turned out it was just blood. And my face and my head were so numb that I really couldn't feel anything. Later, one of the doctors pulled big cotton wads out of my nostrils, and I didn't even know they had been up there. I just thought my nose was blocked up with blood. So I'd woken up, I was woozy, I was weak, I hadn't eaten anything in a long time or even drunk any water, and I desperately wanted water because I was so dehydrated, and I knew immediately that no one around spoke any English, because I'd been there for a little while already and I knew that nobody spoke any English, so I had to raise my voice as much as I could, which was not very much, and really use all of my energy to try and get someone's attention to bring me water. And a nurse made it very clear to me that she thought I should not have any water and did not want any water, and I was like, I do want some water, and she gave me a little plastic cup of water and I downed it, and then I threw up so much black bile just all down my surgery t-shirt, which is, I still have it, but it's stained to fuck. And that was why she felt that I didn't want any water, but I did, and I carried on having water after that, and I didn't throw up, so well done me. There was also some blood underneath my scalp, so my head was like kind of squeezed by the bandages when they were first taken off, and then they needed to remove it, so they...
I'm just filming the dog.
My recovery is going really well. Apparently, like, freakishly well. So, like, if you're watching this with an eye to doing this, expect it to be slower. Hey, Nat, what's this?
Fish, fish.
It's a rock. What are you gonna do? No! I really like these rocks. They're good. They're chocolate. Little chocolate rocks. It's day... fucking whatever, I don't know. And I have a lot more energy. I didn't take a painkiller to sleep last night. I'm having my stitches out tomorrow. So there are stitches all the way across here. In fact, I can feel it, which is bad news because it should be numb. And the fact that I can feel it means that having the stitches out is going to suck really bad. I also have stitches all around the septum because I don't know why I didn't like clock this. It makes sense obviously, but like they cut this entirely to like lift this up to like do the work inside, and I guess it healed really well really fast because I didn't think that was the case at all. Anyway, I have a lot more energy.
Now, apparently I healed from surgery very, very rapidly, but I did feel more and more like myself and could kind of see myself very clearly in the mirror more and more by the day. I still want to say, though, like, even on day one when I woke up and I looked like that orc, you know, the really, really ugly orc, like I was just absolutely fucked to look at, I could see the changes that Anna had made. I could see the flattening of my forehead, and I could see my nose having changed already, even though it was under a big protective guard. And I just couldn't stop beaming, or, well, grinning as much as I could through a really swollen, sore, numb face. That's something else that's been surreal about the whole experience. As soon as I knew I had a surgery date, I really felt that there were a finite number of times I was going to look in the mirror and see my face the way that it was. We took a picture on the day just outside the hospital, and I purposely avoided doing my sideways face thing so that I could just look front on at how my face was, and then later I filmed myself in the mirror, and I knew it was one of the last times I was going to be looking at my face like that. By that point I really felt like I could see what it was they were going to change, and I was looking at myself in the mirror like one of the aliens from Star Trek, like I was wearing silicone bumps on my face that the surgeon was just gonna peel off and be like, there you go, Sophie, you can go home now. We're done filming our episode where Picard debates a sentient mountain. It wasn't until some point after the surgery, when I'd healed up a lot more, that I realized that I had developed a kind of learned disappointment when I would look at myself in the mirror or any reflective surfaces, where I had an idea of what Sophie looked like in my mind, and I almost expected to see her when I would look at my reflection, and then this feeling, this disappointment, and I only noticed it because it was gone. I noticed that I wasn't feeling that feeling anymore, and that was... well, it continues to be one of the best feelings I can describe in life. I look like me now. Okay, so let's talk about travelling to Armenia. Armenia is very far from the UK, and it's quite hard to get there, and not a lot of people speak English. Also, Dr. Sluzky being Russian and there being sanctions on Russian finance from within the Imperial Core meant that I couldn't just transfer her the money. I actually needed to get it out in cash and then have it exchanged into dollars because they are the most easily transferable and changeable currency, and then take the dollars in person, which felt about as crazy as it sounds, but I'd known that people had done it before and that there wasn't any kind of scam waiting on the other end, just someone who can't take bank transfers right now. It's definitely one of the most bizarre things I've had to do, to take $7,000 in cash halfway around the world. The big thing about having to travel to Armenia for surgery is, of course, people who are hostile towards trans people, and I want to be straightforward about that and as clear as I can. The culture in Armenia is currently quite hostile to LGBTQ people and feminists. Additionally to that, places that you might have to stop over, like Turkey, are also very hostile to LGBTQ people. I'd been through Antalya Airport on the way to Armenia once before, and I really wanted to avoid doing it again this time, so I had an extremely circuitous route that ended up travelling through France, Germany, Austria, and Greece in order to avoid doing that stopover again. Nonetheless, while I was there in Armenia, and I will say I explored quite a lot and I talked to a lot of people, most of whom were absolutely lovely and delightful and extremely welcoming of me. I also experienced some out-and-out hate crimes, people being threatening, some kids threw something at me. More than once I was threatened with a bat. And that's why I'm not straightforwardly advocating for trans people to go to Armenia, because it's scary and people need to make their own informed decisions. A couple of things that I can say. It's fucking ridiculous that the NHS doesn't offer FFS, and because of that I had to travel to Armenia to get surgery. And I want to be clear that Armenia is a beautiful place full of tons of absolutely lovely people, because most people are pretty nice towards other people, no matter what kind of person they are, and want to leave a good impression and want to make friends. And that was my experience through all of my travelling, and has been all of my experience travelling as a trans person. With the obvious exception of a very aggressive, loud minority. Kind of just like back home in London, really. Armenia is a beautiful place with lots of fantastic culture to explore, a fascinating geopolitical situation that a lot of people are really invested in. Actually, Nat and I ended up going to a Q&A session with someone who used to work in Washington who now works with the Armenian government. There was just a live event that was being held at a bar one night, and it was a really fascinating event to be able to sit in on and observe.
Armenia is the only stable, friendly neighbor for Iran. I mean, Armenia has a tough geography, but look at Iran. It's in between Iraq and Afghanistan. Damn. The only good thing is they have not just energy, but the ocean, the Red Sea. One thing about energy, though, when I first moved here, I thought, what a small country. Small in size, territory. Our natural resource are human, and they get on planes. We have no oil and no gas. As I live here, I say, thank God we don't have oil. Corruption would be impossible. And as a fact, there is only one country that produces oil that's a democracy, Norway. And the reason is because they were a democracy first and then discovered the oil. So I'm quite glad we don't have oil. But what I discovered, Armenia is so small, territory, population, and I used to think that's such a disadvantage. Someone didn't like that.
His contention, which made a lot of sense, was that Armenia has to really carefully balance itself between spheres of influence, because accepting too much support from America or Europe could make Iran or Russia hostile to them, and vice versa. This is in no way a defense of Russia, but when Azerbaijan attacked Armenia recently, actually just the week before I had to fly for surgery, so I knew I was flying almost directly into an active war zone, which was cool. When that happened, Russian military support played a role in trying to de-escalate things and push Azerbaijan back. That was Russia defending a small neighbor with which they have a lot of trading interests, but I think it would be a mistake to extrapolate from this to see Armenia primarily as a Russian-allied country. I also met with Anna Nikogosian of FemLibrary, the underground radical queer and feminist library in Yerevan. It's had to move location a few times because of reactionary neighbors who accused them of trying to spread degeneracy, and it was a fascinating place to visit, a whole set of wonderful people to talk to, and I got to get in a little interview that I want to show some of now with Anna.
Hi, welcome to the Feminist Library, established in the Republic of Armenia. This is our little underground activist, queer, feminist, intersectional space. Let's go.
Okay.
This is our communal kitchen where you can have free coffee, tea, water, bring your food, share it with other people, and talk about politics.
Fantastic.
This is our main library room, and you can find literature on feminist and queer studies, but also from the intersectional fields, from arts, philosophy, social sciences, and other subjects. Most of the books are in English, but obviously we have literature in Armenian, as well as in Russian, French, and a couple of other languages, which is Italian or Spanish. But most of the books are in English, because the library, when when we were setting up the library, we organized crowdfunding, and people were donating books from around the world. And literally from all continents of the world, we received books on feminism and queer studies. Each book has its own story, the background. We remember every person who has ever donated to our little library, and so far it's been a safe space for feminists, for activists, for queer and trans people, for people who want to fight for social justice. And our feminism is very intersectional. We fight for environmental rights, anti-colonialism, for peace, and for various other social justice issues.
Us about the story of the library, and I thought it was so interesting. I thought we should just definitely get it down. You were saying that you had to move location a few times.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So our library was established in 2015-16, and at first it was operating in the apartment that I was renting out with my partner, and our friends were coming over and reading the books, but then we realized that it needs to be accessible to anybody who is interested in feminism and queer studies and activism, so we decided to apply for funding. We got one in 2018.
So where did you apply for funding?
The first funding came from the Prague Civil Society Center, and we were able to rent out a separate place. It was a detached house in the city center.
Wow.
Soon after a few meetings, we had to move because the neighbors accused us for spreading perversion.
Oh my gosh.
And they said that we're queer and lesbians, but in a very derogative words, of course, not in that wording. So and we had to move the first time, but it happened to us the second time as well. We moved to a very touristic area, thinking that, okay, maybe because we are in the heart of the city, even though it was much more expensive, we thought that this will save us from any inconvenient situations like that, but it happened again, and then we had to move to even more expensive place, but then because of the coronavirus and the shrinking funding, we had to move, and we came here as an interim location. But at the same time, we're gathering money to buy our own property. We already have $40,000.
Wow, okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's still a small money to buy, but in a couple of years, I think we'll have our own queer space.
So you already talked about donating books, but would it be helpful for people to donate money?
Yes, of course. So the money that we are gathering is for a specific cause. It's to buy a property, be independent from neighbors, from groups, right-wing groups, or like any person or any group that can harm us, to have our own space and not be afraid that we would be forcefully relocated again.
So have you had like targeting from right-wing groups as well?
Yes, of course.
So, but when you say about these kind of attacks, like what is it that happens? Like who shows up, or who's giving you the trouble directly?
It depends. The physical so-called attacks were so far from neighbors and from the police. So usually well, it happened a lot. So usually. So they call the police, they say that we are a group that is spreading perversion, and that they have to check us out. So the police come, and then they check our books, they check the space, they check the papers, and eventually, because all the neighbors, or most of them, sign a kind of petition, we are forced to change the place, and it happened already twice. But we also get attacked by right-wing groups and also by political groups that manipulate this topic for their own political agenda, and mostly these kind of attacks are either online, targeting us as individual activists, but also as a group, as a feminist library, or they are physical in spaces where we do activism, like closing streets, doing graffiti, or organizing any kind of street resistance. They come to the actual place. As independent people, we are fighting, for instance, in terms of March 8 resistance. We're fighting when there is exploitation of workers or possible mining or in an environmental setting that is dangerous for people.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of molybdenum and copper mining in Armenia.
Oh yeah, the mining is a serious issue
Right.
In Armenia, and lots of our friends are fighting for environmental justice, and we support greatly this cause because it's also very close to our hearts.
Right.
We're active in various social justice movements, not only in this direction.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
If you are interested in supporting us, please send books on the similar subjects in basically any language that I mentioned, but especially in English. We will remember you and your support, and our library will grow. This is how we've been established.
You'll find links in the description to support FemLibrary if you'd like to. Anna told us that they are trying to raise enough money to have their own place that they own, and then they'll be better protected from having to move constantly. So Armenia is a really beautiful place. There's lots of really lovely people there. The food is unbelievable. I don't think there was a single place we ate that wasn't amazing the whole time. Apparently the food critic Anthony Bourdain used to go back to Armenia once a year until he died to dine at a restaurant called Dolmama. I've eaten there twice, and the second time I cried because the food was so good. I fully did a ratatouille critic-ass bit where I was like, I tried the thing and it was really good. So if you find yourself in Armenia for any reason, try a lot of the food, because the food there is fantastic, and especially eat at Dolmama if you can. But regarding bigots, I have to be clear about this. I travelled around in Yerevan a lot. That means that I had a lot of different experiences with different people. As I say, I really feel that most people were still lovely and very accepting, polite, and eager to make friends. But some people were pretty horrible. I frequently had a hard time getting a taxi because taxi drivers would see me from a distance, pull up, see me a little bit closer, and then just drive away and not let me in. A fair few people acted in unwelcoming ways similar to that, and as I said earlier, some people acted in more explicitly hostile ways, which were really horrible. All I can ultimately say, though, is that different people have different feelings about their personal safety around hostile bigots, and that's completely fair. So some people would choose to go there and explore around and do what they can to feel safe if there are people who are being hostile. Other people would choose to go there and spend the entire time in the hotel room, and I think both are equally valid decisions.
Hey, how you feeling? What you been doing?
What have I been doing? I was just at the hospital. I just had my stitches out
Whoa.
of my head
Yeah.
and my nose, and out of my head.
And inside your nose.
Didn't hurt at all, except for a little bit at the front, and there was a little bit. My nose, that really hurts. And I had my nose bandage changed, and now
Oh.
you can see my
Oh
face.
my goodness.
Of course, there is an opposite to the vocal minority of hostile bigots in Armenia, and that's the queer community itself. There are queer people in Armenia, and I got to know a few of them while I was there, and they were all absolutely lovely. It's just that queer spaces have to be somewhat underground and hidden, and queer people have to be really careful about how they conduct themselves. Meeting Armenian queer people certainly served as a reminder to me that no matter how hostile the climate is, or how reactionary the government is, queer people will keep on existing, because we just exist. Queer people are everywhere, and we're not going to stop being everywhere, and we're not going to stop being born all the time. It's not something that you can make illegal and then just stop happening. It's not something you can legislate out of existence. You can make queer people's lives harder, and that will suck. But you can't erase us. I was thinking a lot when I was collecting clips from the trip, and I've been thinking a lot since about what I should end out this video with. And here I am making it now, so time for me to think of something. I've been on hormones for nearly 3 years now, and seeing the effect that estrogen has had on my body has made me happier day by day when I wake up looking a little bit more like myself all the time. Surgery just feels like an extension of that I got to look a lot like myself all of a sudden. Well, first I looked like Chucky for a little bit, and then I looked a lot more like myself as the swelling went down. But I've described to people before how the process of watching myself change because of HRT, because of my transition, has been magical. And it's sometimes felt like I am seeing magic happen. That there's some kind of fairy godmother behind the scenes making this happen. But when I go looking for the fairy who used her magic to make me look like this, it's me. Trans people get called selfish or narcissistic a lot, and I think that's just people seeing that trans people are willfully defending their right to be themselves. And some people, for reasons that I can only feel have to do with their own insecurities, really hate seeing people do that and come out beautiful and happy and fulfilled. So if there's a final thing I want to say in this video, it's just that I'm very happy that I look like myself now. I also hope that being able to talk about this makes it easier for people who've already decided that they want to do this, that they want to travel outside the UK to have surgery, and I hope that it helps people who know them who might be worried about them as well. And I don't really care if people think of it as plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery, or correctly understand it as a gender-affirming surgery. It's made me look like myself, and that is something that I've tried for a long time to be able to put into words, and I don't think I can do it justice. I can just say it makes me really happy. Thanks for watching.
Take a little food and water. I can let you share the shelter. Maybe this will help you find your faith in mankind that you lost. Hope you appreciate the offer. I just hope you're feeling better. Maybe we can burn the bridge we'll take to get there when it's crossed. I know you've been abused, and I know you're confused, 'cause we both got some bruises that we'd rather not reveal. And if you're feeling scared or simply unprepared, it doesn't matter where we end up, I know we can heal. We made of the house and how to get there, but